You have to be willing to invest on the front end. It can't be one of those things where I need to see it make money and then I'll invest into more amenities or professional design or whatever that might be. Investing on the front end is so, so important because with the market and the way it is now, you're not going to make money from just throwing up anything.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to VRNation Station, the podcast for the short-term rental industry. I appreciate everybody coming and listening in. I got a great guest today. I'm very excited to introduce to you all. But before we do, I really appreciate it if you would hit the old like or subscribe button. Share this if you would as well. With any help we can get is wonderful as we get going. And ultimately, it would be terrific if people could write questions, just fire it off. You can go right into the info at VRNation and send that off to us, or go right onto our website. There's a comments on there as well. So no further BS for me. Why don't we jump right into it? Today, I have Brittany Wambold with me. Brittany, for anyone hearing your name for the first time, who are you and what is Wambold Properties?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me today. As you just said, my name is Brittany with Wambold Properties. I created this company about 3 years ago, and we help investors from start to finish of identifying a market, a property, designing it, setting it up, all the way through management and social media marketing.
Awesome. That's terrific. So when I think about it, there's more to your story, which is funny. Like, that was your intro, but then obviously there's more to your story because you're very entrepreneurial by nature, and I think it's really fascinating. But the part that really kind of got me turned was originally when I first started reaching out. I asked you the question about your career and working at in advisory services, and thinking that, like, oh, okay, you walked away from this and now you've got into this. You're still working as an advisor in that role. So now you're doing both things. Like, what's a typical work week look for you, and how do you manage all that?
Systems. Thank you for asking. Yes, I've been in corporate America for going on 10 years in the staffing space and advisory services space. So, of course, I'm still going in the office most days. So a lot of the times when I'm doing things for Wambold Properties or even for vendor list, which we'll talk about down the line, it's after work, weekends, and during the day, a lot of the time my team is running with things. So I utilize like a lot of different platforms and softwares and AI, especially when it comes to like guest messaging. And then when it comes to like owner communication and emails and social media and website updates and all of that, I'm very lucky to have assistants that are able to help me with this. So I'm able to do both.
Wow, that's interesting. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about that more distinctly, because I find a trend that's really, really interesting, especially with younger property managers and how they are utilizing technology to manage. But why don't we just, before we go there, let me ask you a few more questions about just, like, first of all, how you got into it, right? Like, so before we started recording, I told you my story, and it generally was, like, happenstance that I just kind of made it into the short-term rental industry. Um, but when I think through of it, it's like, you're offering, like, what was the actual moment? Like, what was the reason that you needed to get into property management and other parallel services around property management? Like, what was the thing that got you here?
That's a great question. So I had obviously being in corporate America, being in the sales type role, had been able to save up some capital to purchase a second home that's about 3 hours from where I live in DC in the Virginia Beach area. And then I was like, okay, if I'm going to pay the mortgage and everything like that, I definitely want to Airbnb it, be able to go with family and friends like multiple times a year, but also make that income as well. So I had bought a place based on proximity to like the ocean or technically the bay. And from there was like, okay, everything else, like, you know, is based on more so like what I like, not really what was going to actually generate like more guests. I guess the only other thing I really kept in mind was just making sure there was no carpet, and that it was all easy.
Right.
Would it get disgusting, stuff like that. So I did ended up setting it up, designing it myself, had a lot of fun, and even just kind of learned from scratch how to like manage cleaners and, manage maintenance folks and the difference between somebody who's short-term rental, like cleaning specific versus not, and how many challenges that, poses as well. And it ended up being just an awesome experience. And this was back about 4.5 years ago. Then a few months later, I just had this drive to do an all pink place. So I was looking into like Scottsdale or Nashville because it's bachelorettes and birthday draw. Ended up choosing Nashville because it's closer to DC. I mean, it's still a 10-hour drive, but
Right.
at the time I thought, oh, in case of an emergency. Got that set up, had a lot of fun, made social media pages for both. They definitely popped off. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to keep buying my own, but need some more capital. So why don't I start helping other people do this in almost an advisory capacity? So then I started about 3 years ago more with consulting. Then it's kind of transformed more into either, full blown like talking to an investor. They don't have any idea where to start. Okay, like let's identify a market, a guest avatar, get it all going for them. Or it could be a la carte. So if they're just like, okay, I really just need the property management. We're gonna do everything else. Okay. I just need the social media marketing. Okay. Or they might just say, I just want to identify one and I'm going to handle the rest. That's fine too. I've also had it where property managers refer me just for the design piece and the setup piece. So it's really customizable based on what people's needs are, what their budget is, goals, all of that. And then I just really keep up with these things through continued education, through masterminds, through conferences, podcasts, articles, books to make sure that I'm keeping up with the trends so I can support clients.
So it's interesting. Not the way that I was brought into the industry, like how like your approach is different. Well, I mean, everybody's approach is just a little bit different, but your approach is very interesting. And I thought the part that really piqued my interest was when you said, "Oh, the pink house." Right? And I'm going like I can see why that's got flavor. I can see why it's a draw for people. But the question is like when you niche out to that regard, how do you forecast? How do you know it's gonna pay for itself? Like, how did you get to that point? That's the one that I'm like, that felt like that's kind of a jump, right? Like that's a leap a bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a market that's very oversaturated, you have to do things that stand out. You can't be afraid. I feel like a lot of times the more plain or bland properties or the ones that aren't targeting an ideal guest avatar end up being the ones that don't book or move to the bottom of the algorithm. So for instance, like if I know, there's X amount of bachelorette parties that come here, or maybe another city gets X amount of people traveling for work, or another city is a lot of families, then you're not going to stand out if you make it too broad. You will stand out by doing like a smart niche. So I wouldn't say go do an all pink place in middle of nowhere, Idaho, if it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So it all has to make sense. And even if it's going to be like a girls destination, there's one that I did in Syracuse, or couples, like we're not going to do it quite as bold as that, but we're going to see what does this market not have already? What are some local attractions that will bring this in and kind of go off of that? So there's almost a science to it. Same thing with like amenities. I would say like you want to see what amenities are, performing based on what properties are performing really well. You can kind of figure out, okay, we should do this at ours as well. This is all the properties that are making over X amount in revenue have a hot tub. Okay,
Right.
awesome. But also, what do properties in the area not have? So for one project, we were the first like barrel sauna in the area, or the first dog park. So we did that because we knew that there wasn't any properties that have that. So maybe we can have the earning and the ROI potential for this property be even higher than what the projections are.
All right, folks. Well, I want to take a minute from this podcast and just thank a few people, especially our sponsors. Wander, huge appreciation to Wander for stepping in as a diamond sponsor this year. They've been an incredible partner to VRNation, not just at the conference, but also as a headliner sponsor for both of our roadshow tours this year, the Beach Biz Tour in January and the upcoming Southern Charm Tour in May. Wander is redefining the guest experience by combining luxury properties with a fully integrated tech platform. What makes them unique is how intentional they are about design, consistency, and delivering a high-end, seamless stay across every property. We're especially grateful for how they continue to show up across multiple touchpoints in the VRNation community. If you're curious about where the future of hospitality is heading, Wander is absolutely a company to watch. So thanks for joining the podcast. Let's get back to it. That's really interesting. That is man, that's cool. So how many different regions slash locations are you actually in right now?
So I will do anywhere in the US, honestly, open to even worldwide. I would say from a management perspective, we have a few in Florida, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, and Pennsylvania. And then from a design perspective, we've done them in those states, plus New York, Colorado, and I might be forgetting a couple.
So just so I'm clear, what you're when I talk to you about it, you're saying some of the properties, but you're talking about consulting wise. So you're working with property owners who are maybe like, I just bought this property. I don't really know what I want to do. I think I want to Airbnb it, but I'm just not sure. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call Brittany and you're going to say, Jamie, give me where you're at. Here's my recommendation. And this is what we can do for you. Is that along the
Yeah.
lines of how
I
that?
mean, ultimately, sure. Yeah. I mean, sometimes somebody comes and they're like, okay, I already have this property and I need a new manager. So we'll manage. Or they might want to do a design refresh because it's already set up. That's fine. For an upcoming project I have now in St. Augustine, Florida, that one was, I was put in contact with them before they were even under contract at the house. So we got everything ironed out so that once, even before they end up closing, we're going to get started on the design so
Yep.
that we can set it up afterwards and then hit the ground running so that they can get it listed and start making money on it. So all different phases. It could just be somebody who's like, hey, I really want to take advantage of the STR tax loophole. Where do I start? And we can, usually what I do is like look into, okay, well, depending on how much they have that they're wanting to invest, like what would be a good market for them. Because obviously, like there's a kind of a point of entry that I go off of because once again, there's a lot of oversaturated markets. I want to ensure that if they're going to go into a market, they're going to be successful. So if
Right.
they have, more versus less, then we can kind of determine which market makes the most sense. So people even start there, even if they don't have a house in mind. Or maybe they're evaluating a place if it should be, long term, midterm, short term. And I can look up the numbers and kind of advise them on what they should do for that.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that go into that and how we
Yeah,
look at the
absolutely.
example. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. So ultimately, what I mean, if I think about your services, like do you consult with other property management companies or is it more solo hosts that are looking for, in other words, if I said, hey, you know what, I've got the top Wisconsin rental company and I'm looking for somebody I can partner with to help prospective homeowners in doing some of their that styling their property, is that a situation that you work with property managers or is it more specific to just individual homeowners?
Both. Most of my referrals have actually ended up being from property managers for the design piece. So it's
Gotcha.
really both. I think it's like the client, I mean, if we're generalizing, obviously needs to be somebody who sees the value in investing up front because it's gone are the days where you could just throw stuff together in a room with white walls and think that it's going to perform on, these platforms. So it definitely needs to be somebody who is either coachable or just understands the value of like professional design and even could be professional management as
Sure.
well. So because like people have different drivers. Like some people want this so it takes it off their plate. And then some people are like, no, like I want it to perform better. And it will based on this. And maybe I need to invest a little bit more up front, but we will see these returns and then some within a year, year and a half.
Right. That's interesting. I've had that conversation a lot of times, many times. And the interesting part that I always find is, and for those people listening, especially, if you have one property, maybe two properties, you're thinking about it, you're not real sure, you're concerned about how much money is being made. The biggest thing that I try to explain to people when I talk to them is you are running a business. You have to keep in mind that whatever you're putting into it is an investment towards this business. So if you don't know, like Brittany has a set of skills you do not have. If you had it, you wouldn't be talking to me. It's like being able to look at a property and determine like what needs to change, how to decorate, what kind of furnishings you need, what kind of amenities need to be added. Like that is not a science. That's an art, right? And you have to you how did you get down to that point? Did you go to school for design or how does one actually learn this?
It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. So I ended up obviously not doing this for my corporate career or even studying this in college or anything like that. But I did take an interior design class in probably, I want to say it was ninth grade. And I had said that this is what I wanted to be when I grew up, even when I was younger than that. So it really didn't come back until after I started doing them for my own properties. But like through these masterminds and through continued education, through conferences, I continue to learn and evolve. So that's how I've gone about it, but was not the formal education in school or anything like that.
Right. So it was the passion to learn it. That's, it's kind of like architecture and things. A lot of people, they delve in early and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know, I can't do that growing up. I got to go get a real job. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you
Exactly.
end up going, you end up
I
going
wish
back
I
to your
had gone
passion because that's what you care about. Right.
I always had
That's
an eye
awesome.
for it, but it was one of those things where you say that and people are just kind of like, what? Like, get a real job.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
don't get it. They don't
Yeah.
get it. It's funny because, we're out in the mountains, not physically, but, as far as short-term rental, especially in Idaho, there's so many bear cabins. There's so many moose cabins, right? Like there's so many, and you're just kind of head scratching. It's like, oh, I've already got it decorated. It's like the same red and green plaid pattern, and
Yeah. You get
you
this
just
stuff.
right, yeah, right. And it's like, well, yeah, people come up to the mountains and they want to see stuff, but the reality is like there's more. So that's something that we've been working back with people to try and, do a better job at defining is just simply like how can you first identify the niche that you want to go after, right? Like hanging up, fluorescent beer signs is probably not the path you want to head if you're trying to recruit people that aren't going to tear your house apart. But the reality is that, there's ways to go about it. It's just tough when you're in maybe a really standard market in that regard.
Yeah. And I
That's
think,
really cool.
yeah, I was going to say, I think like the other thing is too, is that a standard like residential like interior designer is doing something very very different than what we're doing. Like something that someone such as myself is focused on is more what is scroll stopping when you're on Airbnb. Like what are the shots that are going to stand out to guests when they book? What's going to be bold? What is going to, get more views, which will then turn into more bookings and increase your rank on the algorithm? What's going to be marketable? What are people going to want to see? They're not living in these places, for any
Right.
more than a few days typically. So you can have things that are a little bit more fun and unique. And that's what it's showing that people are wanting is kind of experiences and like unique experiences.
Right. No, and that makes a ton of sense. Um, it's interesting. So I'm just gonna peek a little bit more on how you actually come up with the general idea, the theme, right? You made a comment about an avatar, right? And a lot of people, well, let's just be honest, people don't know what the hell an avatar is. You think of Avatar, they all think of blue people on some far right? But the reality is there's terms like avatar that are coming along. And Jen Boyles, if you haven't ever met Jen, she's awesome. She's a direct booking expert. She uses avatars all the time when determining ideal guests. So I'm really interested to hear about like how do you come up with the avatar? Like, is it a statistical number? Is it a homeowner preference, or where does that come from?
Very rarely a homeowner preference. If they have ideas or if they have opinions on it, absolutely. I typically will just figure out why people are coming to the area. I'll do research, obviously, like if it's a given, that's one thing, but I don't just want like the gut feeling. I back it with data as well. So I want to see why people are coming to the area and then based on what other listings are doing. So I'll give you an example. Let's say some area in the US had a lot of wineries go up in the last few years, but
Right.
there's maybe not too many Airbnbs. Maybe it's kind of a growing destination for like couples trips, girls trips, could even be bachelorettes. Um, but we're looking through the listings and everything is, very much so like whites and grays and beiges but we're seeing that, in the last few years it's kind of booming and it's continuing to grow and this is increasing the amount of guests that are coming to the area for these reasons specifically, then okay, we might be in a good market to do like at a house that could appeal to girls trips, bachelorettes, couples even. Maybe it's not in Nashville. We don't want to just do like the birthdays and the bachelorettes. But with that being said, like you even think of things like bed counts then, or
Right.
if it's mostly couples, then you're gonna do a lot of like king and queen beds. But maybe if it's families and maybe if it's it could be work trips, it could be bachelorettes, you might do a few more of those twin beds and bunk beds. So like
Right.
you be looking at little things like that. And then also, it could be an area where, oh, it's a maybe this one I'm talking about hypothetically is like a 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom house. Okay, cool. But maybe there's somebody who has like a condo, 1 bedroom condo in the middle of Indianapolis. Well, maybe it's walking distance to a convention center or something like that, where people travel a lot for work.
All
That's
right,
gonna be
let's try a real life use case. We're gonna try a real life use case. All right,
okay.
I'm gonna test you. Here we
Let's
go.
do it.
Buffalo, New York.
Okay, so tell me, since you're there now, correct? Tell
I am
me some
here.
of the reasons why people go and travel there.
So great question. Why do people come to Buffalo, New York? Buffalo, New York is actually an incredibly interesting town. People don't know that actually. So just north of it is Niagara Falls. So that's only about 20 miles north of Buffalo. Buffalo was the first city with electricity driven by hydro dam. So did people come for that? I think so. The architecture is insane. Like literally the architecture here is so crazy. Like building to building to building. It looks like something out of Ghostbusters. Like it's crazy, right? But when you look at the houses, every house, and I've stayed at, I don't know, 6, 7 different short-term rentals. My son goes to college here, is why I'm here. But it's like I've stayed at 6, 7 different short-term rentals. They are all the same. They are a level of a large, I want to say Victorian style home, entire residential neighborhoods of the exact same house. And it's like an 8 bedroom, 3 story. What is a mansion at one point in time? Now it does not look like a mansion. But when you think about it, right, depending on where you're at, there are several universities in town.
Yep.
If you get to downtown Buffalo, you've got multiple sports teams. I'm actually a little bit west. I'm over by Orchard Park, which is where the Bills play. So it's not the biggest town. It's super easy to get around in. Um, but everything is the same. Blah.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
what do I do?
Yeah. No, it sounds like based on what I'm hearing, colleges are there. Niagara Falls is close enough where people would go do that as well. So it could be families traveling. It could even be couples, depending on the size of the house. It could be also the same thing. Families, it could be parents coming to visit their students. It could be people staying that are touring the colleges. So that's awesome. So I would say if I look through and maybe there's nothing at all that has any sort of like sports themes, knowing there's the sports teams in the colleges, that could be something that you could do tastefully. I wouldn't want to do like overdo it, but that's definitely
Right.
something where if no other place in the area is themed like that, that could be a great option. It could also be something where, it's a family house, and that doesn't mean that you can't have like a fun color palette and do some bold designs. I wouldn't go all out like you would do with the bachelorette party, but you could still do some unique things. And you even have like a kid's room. Or if it's a larger house, even something like a game room would be really fun. If it's a larger place too, amenities that they don't have in the area. So it's cold there. So I'm assuming you don't have as many hot tubs as you would in other parts of the country.
Haven't seen one.
So yeah, that might not, maybe that's not great. Maybe that doesn't hold up super well in the area, but maybe there's no places in the area that have like a wellness room. People love that too, and it's typically inexpensive. So that could be something where there's, yoga mats. Maybe there is a sauna indoors. Maybe there's mirrors and some workout equipment. You don't have to go crazy. The machines are really expensive, but even if you have like weights, is something that if nobody else is doing it in the area will definitely make your property stand out. Anything else when you're clicking through, like, some of the amenities of what you check off, I feel like the more you can do, the better. So when people are narrowing down their search, like, your place pops up. But these are some, like, initial ideas without knowing, like, exactly where it would be located or the
Right,
exact.
exactly. But I love the way you think. I mean, it's so funny because it's one of those things that if I had to spit it out, I mean, realistically, at a high level, if anybody listening is like, well, I just don't know. I don't know how I would start this. How I tell people is, well, go into VRBO, man, and look how do you search? What do you look for? Like, go find a place in downtown Buffalo and tell me which ones look best to you. And eventually they're just like, oh yeah, well, I think this kind of looks cool. And it's like, all right, well, how did you get there? Write it down. Cause now you know, like, this is how I get there. The part that still is missing though is I need a Brittany to go, all right, I really want to make something special around this. And you're going to go, okay, well, use this color paint, use this type of furniture, use this, highlight these points in your pictures. Like that's the part that is very, very tough to find.
Yeah, exactly. And then, just keeping proximity in mind, I think is a huge one too. Like, this is some of the themes you were talking about. It's like, okay, like maybe in this property a mural makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's like area outdoors that we would want to do something with. Maybe nobody else, is dog friendly. And so we definitely want to do that. We want to advertise that. We want to get special accent shots, in the listing so that dog owners who are traveling see it too. So there's just so many little things that go into it that can make a difference in order for your property to stand out.
All right, folks, taking a little bit of a break. I just want to reach out and say thank you to a special sponsor for us, Realtek. Big thank you to Realtek for joining us again as a diamond sponsor. They've been valued partners since 2025, and we're incredibly grateful for their continued support of VRNation and the community we're building. Realtek is known for helping operators drive more direct bookings through high-performing websites and marketing strategies. What makes them stand out is their focus on results, not just aesthetics, and their deep understanding of how travelers actually book. Their ongoing investment in VRNation really speaks to their commitment to the industry, and we're proud to have them alongside us again this year. And if you're looking to improve your direct booking performance and digital presence, Realtek is a great team to connect with. So again, thanks for joining us. Let's get back to the podcast. Like when I think of some of the properties that we have at Cabino up in Idaho, and I look at what matters with those properties, there's always a couple things that really jump off the page, and it's usually like the new builds, right? Everything that looks new, and they get big money for them. I mean, these are 6-figure plus, gross per year. When I think of the larger pot of where there's really a large supply of properties. It's usually like the 2 bedrooms, the 3 bedrooms, and it's all the same little log cabin, 3 bunk beds in a room, and everything's got little bear carvings and welcome to the cabin signage. You know what I mean?
It's like not
Like,
unique. Yeah.
it's not right. It's not. So what does that become? Right? It becomes now you're in a commodity market, and in your pricing, it's all a pricing game at that point because you don't have anything unique to offer. So yeah, those are the kind of things I think a lot of folks really don't fully understand when they're getting into short-term renting. And I think it's something that I definitely am working on from a from an education and a forecasting perspective when I talk to people, 'cause they come to me and they say, Jamie, I'm really thinking of getting, a property into, in short-term renting. And it's just like, well, you know, what kind of property are you thinking, and what kind of spend, what kind of capital do you have to actually operate in this function? Because a lot of people, they're going to try and buy as much house as they can for the money. And it's like, by the time they buy the property, they're out of cash to invest on like furniture,
Yeah.
you know, like, and it's the things that are actually going to sell it, right? Whether it's 4 bedrooms or five, almost is not as relevant as, is it so eye catching that people are going to want it? Is the demand going to be increased? So I
It,
think that's a really interesting point. So, when I think through, how you are working with companies, like what's the life cycle of a client look like? So we talked about, Jamie's buying a property in Buffalo. Go. Okay, now then what? Like I say, oh yeah, that sounds great, Brittany. Let's do that. Like, what are your next steps? I mean, are you arranging purchase of furniture? Are you implementing? Are you actually having somebody go up and put it in?
it all depends on, it's all customizable, which I know that's a super annoying answer. If somebody's like, I want it all off my plate, then awesome. I'll figure out, ideal guest avatar. Like if they want to, approve a mood board color palette, fine. They want to like, look at a rendering, make some swaps, totally doable. If they don't want to be involved, okay. If they then want us to do the setup as well and the ordering, awesome. Manage it for them, create the listing, have a social media page if it makes sense based on the theme, we'll do it. But if they then get one and they only want part of it or they want to be more involved, then it's all about their bandwidth and what they're wanting to do. And then we
Got
go
it.
obviously around that.
So if in my scenario with Buffalo, because if you say, hey Jamie, I think there's a real market for bachelorette parties, we're going to turn the whole house pink. I don't foresee me as as who I am anyway, to be spending loads of time at my pink house. So are you hiring somebody to go and paint it? Are you hiring somebody? Like, are you actually GCing like all the work as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. That's incredible. And then as far as like furniture, this is always a big question that I get. And I don't really have a good answer. Usually I punt. But it's like, what kind of spend on furniture would you say is the right spend, or even on appliances? I think my biggest thing is when I talk about fixtures, like don't go to Menards and grab the cheapest faucet, right? Like give them something that they don't normally see. Like those are things that are real eye catching. What do you tell people?
I usually go backwards off their budget, but I'll be real if it's something that's not doable. So there isn't really one set amount. It all depends on like how large the place is, like what the theme is going to be, where it's located. I mean, because there are like luxury high end properties that you could spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But then there's small places where maybe somebody's, furniture and decor budget's closer to 20K. So it really, really just varies. But I am honest with people when I think it is and isn't doable. And there's definitely, certain areas where, we don't have to get the most expensive wallpaper. Maybe we want to spend more money on the couch. Or maybe we want sturdier beds, but we can you know, get wall art that's a little bit more affordable. So there's ways that we can do it depending on what someone's budget is. But I will say, like, you do have to put into it on the front end if you do want to see an actual good return on investment.
So what you're saying is that wall art that I purchased from garage sales is not gonna sell for me. Right?
No.
And furniture from St. Vincent's is not going to work for me. Yeah, it is. It's really, really interesting. Some of the stuff that I've come across. It's just like they're like, "Oh, this is my favorite painting." I'm like, "Dogs playing poker, really?" Like,
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen
hey,
that
come on,
one
buddy.
before.
Yeah, it was ironic. I got a funny story about the paintings though. The last short-term rental I stayed in Buffalo. I have a friend of mine in Minneapolis, and whenever I'm on a call with him, he's got this art behind him, and it's this beautiful painting with the buck. And I'm like, wow, that's such a cool painting, man. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, it's like one of a kind. I go to this short-term rental in Buffalo, and it's literally the same painting. And I actually called him and showed it to him, said, "I'm in a short-term rental in Buffalo, and it's the exact same painting you have hanging over your mantle." It was pretty funny,
I
but,
bet he was like, "Oh gosh."
I know he was. He was kind of like, "Oh, man, like, I thought I went out of my way for that." But, of course, he's like me, so what the hell does he know? So but it's interesting. It's just a funny situation. There's one thing else that I saw, that popped at me, and it's your usage of social media. Can you talk a little bit about how you coach social media with your customers, and then how you apply it with your visual cues in what you're styling? I mean, I think that's so important to get people to actually follow, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say the properties that makes the most sense that are ones that are either really, really, really nice or just themed. Like if you have your run of the mill property, like there's some advertisement you could do, but I wouldn't spend too much money on the marketing aspect. But we do manage the pages, for instance, like some of the properties I own, like Chanel by the Shore and Pretty in Pink. And it's great because we're not only showing like pictures from the listing, we're also getting, it could be influencers that are staying there. Could be people that just, enjoy creating content and show kind of their day to day at the property and what they're doing. We also like to highlight and showcase like local businesses, whether it's like restaurants or, I mean, it could even be activities in the area, whether that's like, businesses as well, or it's more nature type things to show people kind of like an experience. Not just like where you'd be staying, but what you'd be doing the entire time. I think that's big. Of course, we like to add some humor to it as well if possible. And then just keep in mind why people are coming in town. So, like, once again, at Pretty in Pink, they're coming in town oftentimes. We get a lot of like 21st birthdays, 25th, 30th, 40th. We get bachelorettes. And so the content is going to reflect that. We're going to show like ideas for like cocktails or some themes for outfits or, maybe just planners for, when they're going to plan the bachelorette. Maybe it's like maid of honor planners and we're going to show stuff like that. Which kind of they'll follow along throughout their process. Then for Hampton, Virginia, for Chanel by the Shore, we're right next to an HBCU. So we're going to show, what activities are going on at the university, stuff that's going on at the beaches, maybe it's a restaurant week. What's walking distance? Like what is there to do
Right.
that's walking distance? Things like that that are just so much more than just showing, you know,
The
photos of
property.
things to keep people engaged.
Right. And that's so effectively it's really content based. I mean, you're shooting so when you go there, I mean, you have somebody that is shooting the content for you. I mean, how are you gathering, I should say, this is the pain point. The pain point that I have as a business development is uh content, right? Like I can create posts all day long. I mean, dude, I got some AI stuff that's phenomenal. But it's not real. So like real works, real draws people in. How do you get the content on a steady enough flow to keep it real?
Just as many, like, get as much as possible from the beginning if possible. So, like, for instance, like, sometimes we do get influencers that go and stay, which is great. Sometimes people organically, like, we ask them to share photos and videos with us from their stay, and they do, which is perfect. I go myself, get stuff. Professional photographers and videographers will go as well. So we collect it in all different ways and get creative. And then sometimes it is more so like memes or, you know, things like that. So for instance, for like Pretty in Pink, like Hannah Montana revival happening, or like, maybe it was the Barbie movie coming out, like things like that we can play off of too. That we know
Sure.
the girls that are following really like. We always try to keep in mind like the ideal avatar as well. Like I'll give an example. So for Nashville, we know people travel from all over the country and now all over the world. So they've
Right.
expanded terminals. So we know people are going to be coming. For a place near Virginia Beach, oftentimes people are driving in from a few hours away. So we know that that's more of our target audience when we're creating content or when we're keeping that in mind. That's just some of the ways and some of the things that we think of when we're doing it.
Gotcha. Wow, that's interesting. No, that's good feedback, and I know it's a struggle for a lot of people. As far as just creating content that captures the avatar, your ideal customer. That again, it's one of those two where people are like, well, I don't even know if my ideal customer's on social media, and it's like, well, you know what, they are.
I'll figure it out. And they are on social media. Yes.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well, I tell you what, I mean, I'm keeping it in line, but I do have to ask you about this new company that we're talking about in vendor. What is
Vendor
it
list.
called again?
Vendor list. Yes.
It's all
Um,
about vendor list. I want to hear it.
I'll tell you. So the reason this came to be was really a pain point and kind of my background as well in corporate America. So coming from a staffing background, but then also being an investor, an owner, host myself for short-term rentals, I noticed there was a gap in just hiring. So oftentimes, like I remember when I first started, like I didn't even realize how important it was to have a short-term rental specific cleaner. I remember somebody had left birth control in one of the drawers, and my cleaners, instead of being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I missed that," they're like, "We don't go in drawers." Well, yeah, if someone's coming to clean my house, they're not going in my drawers, right? But,
Right.
you know, in a short-term rental, you need to be doing that every time. You're looking through the pots and pans, you're looking in the drawers, you're changing the sheets, you're washing the sheets. It's kind of, I'm not gonna say one is harder or easier than the other because oftentimes when you're doing someone's like primary home, there's a lot more clutter, there's a lot more things. There's things that go with both, but you do need someone who understands that every clean is a deep clean and have a reliable schedule and understand that like there could be a same day check and check out. So I noticed that was something, and people are always posting on the Facebook groups, wanting help. And a lot of times people don't want to pick up the phone and they're getting referrals, but they might get 20 responses, but now they have to do references. Now they have to call the people and vet them. So my team, it's not just cleaners. It could be anything, pest control, handymen. It could be CPAs that are specific in short-term rentals and cost segregation studies. It could be a designer. It could be a property manager. It could be literally anything you could think of. Um, but we want to make sure that it is niche to this space because almost everything, like another example is like a photographer. Like not only a photographer, but a real estate photographer still takes mostly shots of the entire room. We need someone who understands that they need to take more lifestyle shots and asset shots. Same with the CPA. Like you wouldn't go to a cardiologist if you had a mole that needed to be removed. Like you'd go to a dermatologist. Same thing with a CPA. Like you need to go to somebody who specializes in short-term rentals
Sure.
and tax
Yep.
segregation studies. So
Absolutely.
like people have a hard time, with that as well. So our team vets them based on what their needs are. So we're a little different than staffing. We don't take like a percentage off salary or it's not like a rate that we charge the client hourly. It's just a referral. It's like a one-time referral.
So, but how do you make money off it then? I mean, if it's a so I'm in Buffalo. And I'm like, man, I don't know where to find cleaners. Like, are you actually going and scouring, looking for them, and then saying, here, try these three? Or how does that work? Like, is it only within the markets that you exist in?
Nope, it's everywhere. So, and it's a boutique approach. So, what we would do is based on like you would tell me, hey, I need someone in Buffalo at this location. Here are the parameters. This is what is specific to this property. This is how we specifically do it at my home. Maybe you're the owner, maybe you're a property manager, and you have a certain way of doing things. So, what I would do is me and my team would run it by this specific cleaner and like make sure they're comfortable with everything. If they're not, okay, maybe we look at their listings that they've previously cleaned for. Are they being docked at all on, the ratings because of cleaning? We probably won't go forward with that. So we look into all these things and do our due diligence so that they're already vetted based on exactly what you're looking for, and then we hand them off to you.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's interesting. That's interesting, and that's any market that you've gone into, because I know mountain markets are specifically difficult just because of the lack of
Mhm.
population than anything. And I could tell you stories which you don't need to hear, but yeah, it's something else. It really is. So vendor lift, Lift,
Vendor
vendor
list,
lift. How
Lyst. Vendor and then
sweet
LYST.
list. Vendor list. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, if you're listening, I would definitely give it a look. I am definitely going to give it a look. So vendor list, we'll put that into into the paragraph, the intro for the podcast itself as well. Um, that's interesting. So are you actually have a body of people that are doing the background checking? It's not just a marketplace. Like I can't just go say, "Hey, Jamie, I'm Jamie, I'm a cleaner. I'm gonna go put my name on that."
Yeah, we keep a database, so, like, if you are, a vendor in this space, please go to our website and, like, input your information, where you are, your resume, all of that, and we will look through our database initially, but if we don't see someone who we think is a good fit, we will go out and make active calls and do an active search to find these
Got it.
people. But obviously building it up on that end is great too. But yeah, we'll go even in rural markets, like we get creative. So
Yeah.
this takes a lot of time off of people's plates when they don't want to have to vet, they don't want to waste any more time. So that's why we exist.
I want to give a special shout out to our diamond sponsors for VRNation 2026. These folks make everything happen, and we just want to give a special thank you for your time, your energy, and your monetary contributions to VRNation. So Bookings Cloud, Inhabit, Real Tech, and Wander, much appreciated. Four companies at the top of this industry who are showing up in a big way in Denver. We could not do this without you, and we are grateful to have you in the room. Awesome. Well, that's terrific. Well, I promised you I wouldn't keep you this long, but I have already. So I'll throw a closing question out for you. So if you had somebody who's listening, who's sitting on the fence and they're thinking about their first short-term rental, what's the one thing you want them to walk away from this episode in their mind?
Yep. That you have to be willing to invest on the front end. It can't be one of those things where you like, I need to see it make money and then I'll invest into more amenities or professional design or whatever that might be. Investing on the front end is so, so important because with the market and the way it is now, you're not going to make money from just throwing up anything. Invest on the front end and then you will see the results. And if there's things that you want to do down the line, great. Use that money that you make to then invest in more properties, but do it right from the start so that you don't have more headaches and you don't lose more money down the line.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Brittany, thanks so much for joining me. It's a pleasure. Honestly, sorry for all my technical fiascos being remotely accessible here. But again, anybody else paying attention, thank you all for listening, for tuning in. Again, if you can like, follow, subscribe, that would be terrific. Check out vendor list as well. Make sure that you give it a look. And as we all know in the short-term rental industry, sometimes resources are a revolving door. It's always great to have somebody help us find the right people. So, Brittany, thanks again for your time today.
Thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation station, tune in and feel the thrill.